Hey everyone, welcome back to Make It Happen Mondays, where we talk about sales, business, entrepreneurship, personal growth, mental health, and everything in between with guests who I truly respect and I think make a positive impact on the world around us. Now, this is a very special week since I'm going to be attending and speaking at Hubspot's Inbound conference in Boston all week. Now, because of this, we decided to do a Hubspot takeover of the podcast with my good friend Russell Bradley Cook, who's actually the Senior App Partner Manager over at HubSpot. And he's going to be talking to some of the leading CEOs in the tech industry about the future of sales and where sales is going, especially in this world of AI. We're going to release these episodes daily, so make sure you tune in and let me know what you think. Let's make it happen.
Hi, John. Thanks for the intro. I'm Russell Bradley Cook, and I'm thrilled to be a part of this. As John mentioned, he's at Boston at our annual Inbound conference, and I'm going to be bringing you not one, but 5 episodes this week, featuring the CEOs of top software companies with integrations on the HubSpot's marketplace. They are Seismic, 6 Sense, G2, Chili Piper, and Typeform, talking about how AI is being used by their sales and marketing teams and in their product, as well as the future of sales and partnerships. Thank you very much for joining us. You can join John and I on LinkedIn with hashtag JBSales and hashtag Let's Make It HubSpot Monday. Let's kick it off.
Godard, welcome to Make It Happen Monday.
Thanks, Russell. Good to be here with you.
Likewise, we were just talking before we started recording. We had filmed an interview over a year ago. And since then, I believe that G2 has passed the $1 billion valuation. You've had 2 million reviews on the platform. And most exciting, I think you biked 116 miles recently. It's been a busy year.
It's been all in all good year, although tough time for our industry, as you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious. I assume that most people listening to this, it's a very sales-oriented audience. They would have heard of G2. I've been a huge fan of G2 for a long time. I see it as one of the unbiased places where buyers go to review information about software solutions. And you've been instrumental in building that into a key pillar, not only for CRM, but for many categories. I was wondering maybe if you could give a little bit about your personal journey, and then also some like high level context on G2, fundraising, plans for the IPO, headcount and sales and marketing, that kind of thing.
Yeah. No, so I've been a software entrepreneur for 25 years now, building SaaS companies. And first, I was also in sales and MarTech. So the first company we built, BigMachines, that became Oracle CPQ, Configure, Price, Quote. Then we built another one of those, SteelBrick, that became SalesForce, CPQ, and Revenue Cloud. And that really also inspired us to build G2. We just wanted to make software buying and selling easier because we saw a lot of our customers struggle to discover apps like ours that could really help their business. And frankly, as an entrepreneur, as a software seller, we thought it was too hard to get awareness of the great apps we were building. And so that's what we sought out to solve with G2. And we are excited. G2 has now become the leading software review platform. When we started, we said our vision was to create a Yelp for business software because we thought this paradigm that's very common in consumer shopping of using reviews to figure out, which products, which services work best for you, that was missing in our industry. And so we started G2 actually about a decade ago. And it's exciting now to see it coming to life. I think we're up to 2.4 million trusted reviews. And, we did become a unicorn, which is exciting. And hopefully that does put us on the way, someday ringing the bell. Obviously impossible to predict when that's going to happen, but we are excited. We've really built a global team, about 650 people around the world, including team members in Europe, in London, Dublin. Obviously we started here in the US, and now we also have a team in APAC, in Bangalore, Singapore, and a partner in Tokyo. And so it's really exciting that now G2 is truly connecting software and buyers and sellers around the world and doing it based on trusted peer reviews.
Yeah, I love it. And as I mentioned, I'm a huge fan of G2 and also a big admirer of you. And for those who don't know, Godard mentioned work with SteelBricks, but he has 2 9-figure exits under his belt. And I think G2 is going to be even bigger than that. So, or G2 is already bigger than that. And so we'll see when the bell rings. In terms of your personal story, you started, maybe can you just share a little bit about how kind of growing up, seeing your dad's business grow, and then how you kind of evolved from that into the software industry.
Yeah, and I did grow up around entrepreneurship. My father was an entrepreneur in a very different industry. He was in pump manufacturing, and he was making big industrial pumps. And but I was born in Germany, and that's where my father's business was originally based. And he was very entrepreneurial. He wanted to get in the U.S. market. So when I was 9 years old, he decided to move me and our whole family to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, to start building, his business in the U.S. And so I do remember as a kid, oftentimes going to his office on weekends with him. And I remember one of the incentives was he had a very early computer-based golf game. But then as I got older, he also sent me to Germany to work in the factory. And so I just remember growing up around, both seeing the challenges, the excitement of building a company. And I do think ultimately it really inspired me to want to be like my dad and, build my own business one day.
Yeah, I see. For salespeople, I really feel like the best salespeople own their business as if it was, they take it seriously, and they have ownership of it and say, this is what I'm going to build from it. And so I think that they have a lot to learn from that lesson and that entrepreneurship that you have. And one of the things that there's a lot of different angles we could take to the discussion. But I joke that at HubSpot, we have an SLA for how quickly we can mention AI. And I believe you mentioned that you launched a feature called Monty. Maybe if you want to talk a little bit about Monty and how that's changing G2 as a product.
Yeah, G2, we did launch Monty. And Monty is the world's first software buying assistant, AI assistant specifically built for business software buyers to guide them to discover the best apps. And probably like most of the world, we were really excited when ChatGPT 3.5 launched last November. And I remember me and my co-founders, we looked at it and we're like, wow, this is incredible. And, how can we apply it to G2? And we'd actually for years been trying to build software selection tools, that Russell, for example, would ask you, hey, what industry are you in? What's your company size? And try to guide you to the best software. But honestly, none of it worked particularly well. And so we immediately decided, hey, let's try to launch an alpha on top of ChatGPT. And my co-founders, Mike and Tim, they run something called G2 Labs, probably a bit like Dharmesh at HubSpot, your co-founder, CTO. And I think he right away also launched, your own AI solution. And my co-founders were so excited. And then we were amazed. I think we first launched it in March, but even as an alpha, how well it could do. And I think the problem it really solves that we couldn't solve before is a lot of software buyers, frankly, don't know what kind of software they're shopping for. They might just have a business problem. Like, hey, I'm trying to improve my sales forecasting, or I'm trying to accelerate my growth. And obviously those of us in tech and software, we have all this tech speak. And we also have it on G2. There's over 2,000 categories, where there's marketing automation software or email marketing software or content management systems to host your website. But the reality is a lot of business people, they don't know our software industry jargon. They're just like, hey, I just want to grow my business. And I think it's also always been part of the HubSpot inbound philosophy. Why don't we educate marketers, salespeople on how to grow their business? And I think what Monty does really well, now you can just go to G2 and say, hey, I'm trying to improve my sales growth. And then Monty will ask you more questions. It will ask you what industry you're in, what's your company size, how many sales reps do you have? And then based on that can make very nuanced recommendations by in real time tapping into the G2 data. And I think also doing it by conversation. And that's also the other problem, I think, with the internet, most apps, right? They tend to be very rigidly built with like forms and that you had to fill in and structured search. And the beauty of AI now allows a conversation. And it's just like you're talking to the best software consultant or the best agency partner, and it can just advise you based on a conversation how to grow your business and ultimately what software tools might help you do it. So we really think it's going to change the game for software buyers and also for software sellers, because G2 can be a much better matchmaker. And sometimes I say it's like a dating site, where we can find the perfect app the first time based on AI and based on data.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of the people that you find leaning into G2, from having talked to the team in the past, I understand there's a bunch of different customer personas, whether it be marketing team, whether it be sales team, whether it be product team. I was wondering, like, what are your best customers? How are they using G2 today to excel and grow?
And G2 is a two-sided marketplace, if you will. And the number one persona we want to serve is a software buyer. And we've always said software, the buyer first, because ultimately we want to give software buyers, which to us include over 1 billion knowledge workers around the world. And we all saw this with the pandemic. Every knowledge worker now, if they weren't already, are using cloud apps all day. Obviously, video conferencing apps like Zoom, CRM apps like Hubspot or SalesForce, and so many other purpose-built apps. And so we really believe it's essential for the knowledge worker to have the best apps, to have the best software stack, because ultimately it determines our productivity at work, it determines our happiness and our success in our career. So we think that's the essential mission. Make sure all billion knowledge workers have the best software, and we call them software buyers. And then we also, on the other side of the marketplace, we love serving software sellers, and those are entrepreneurs. And frankly, as an entrepreneur, I've always been also a salesperson, because obviously to grow my business, our business, we have to sell our solutions, and ideally by targeting the right buyers. And so I think, and that's actually where we've monetized the most, what we call G2 marketing solutions. So we can help software sellers better market their products. And I think what G2 uniquely provides from its marketplace, we have about 8 or 9 million people every month now, software buyers shopping for software. And we can give marketers much better intent to target those buyers at the right time. We can give them updated profiles on g2.com so they can better communicate the value of their solutions to those buyers shopping. And we also can give them great content. And I think the content we believe buyers will really trust. And actually, your founder, Brian Halligan, said this. I think the world is in a crisis of trust. And the reality is, we tend not to trust companies anymore. We don't trust governments. We're very skeptical, but who do we trust? We trust our friends. And G2s kind of bring that concept to your professional peers. We also find, because as a salesperson, sales leader, who are you going to trust? It's peer sales leaders. And that's also who you're going to trust for technology advice. And so that's the core idea behind G2. But we also believe as a seller, what better way to prove your value than to have trusted references, trusted reviews on G2 tied to people's LinkedIn profiles, so that the buyer can then, find trusted advice. And we think that's going to lead to a much more efficient sale, if the trusted peer is recommending your product versus it just being your own marketing claim. And so we do now have over 3,000 software vendor customers all around the world, I think almost 3,500. And they are using G2, both the marketplace, the intent data, and the content, and to grow their business more efficiently.
And so you mentioned before that you were the original salesperson. I listened to a podcast recently that mentioned you built a sales playbook with one of your co-founders that was up to 100 pages, and that you're still evolving that over time. I was wondering, the Make It Happen community is obviously very focused on sales. I was wondering if you could talk through like that sales playbook and the evolution over time.
Yeah, and my co-founder, Matt Gorniak, and I, we have built this sales playbook, which, yes, has grown into 100 pages. And we started building that together at my first company, BigMachines. And frankly, I remember in 2003, I kind of learned the hard way as an entrepreneur how important sales is. Because, 3 years into our first venture, we were frankly almost bankrupt. And we'd started that company at the tail end of the dot-com boom. And this AI boom maybe reminds me a bit of that. But we launched the company back in 2000. And the first year was great. VCs gave us $20 million and they said, wow, you guys are, young geniuses. And frankly, we didn't know what we were doing. And we learned that the hard way, because 3 years later, we'd burned through 19 out of 20 million we'd raised. And frankly, we only had $1 million in AR to show for it. And our metrics, frankly, were pretty terrible. So we weren't going to be able to raise more money. So we had to go in organic growth mode. And at that point, I also had to take over sales myself. Like I tried to hire somebody to lead sales, but frankly, we hadn't found that product market fit. And I think most people say that as the entrepreneur at the beginning, until you get to true product market fit, frankly, you have to be the person selling because you have the most expertise, the most passion. And I kind of learned that the hard way. And then luckily I hired Matt Gorniak, just as a junior sales rep at the time. I only had 2 sales reps. And then he and I kind of together learned, how do we really sell B2B software? A lot of it, obviously the top of funnel, the qualification, how do you grade them? But equally, probably most importantly, how do you really sell value? Because we were also an early cloud software provider. So we had to build really compelling value business cases, because those early companies, at the time we were selling to manufacturers, they were very skeptical about working with a small startup. So we really had to create the best value case in the world and really make them believe that the software we were selling was going to transform their own sales process, save them a ton of money, and that we had well thought out plans that they could trust us to take care of them. And so we really learned together. And then ultimately we scaled that company. I think at the end we had well over 100 sales reps. It was acquired by Oracle for $400 million, and we'd grown it to over 50 million ARR. And probably what I'm most proud of, from the time we were at 1 million ARR and almost out of business, we never raised any more money and organically grew it to 50 million to a global company. And all those lessons we learned, we then distilled in the playbook. And that served us really well. And when we went to build SteelBrick, because that company had just as much success in 2 years and was also acquired by SalesForce for close to $400 million, but we were able to apply all that knowledge from the first company into the second company. And so I think codifying your playbooks, and when we learned that was important, is when you only have 2 reps, you can be very informal. But then, both companies, we wound up with revenue organizations over 100 people, or now G2, we have over 200 people. And so if you don't have a structured process and playbook and enablement, those people won't succeed. At least they won't succeed very quickly. And so it just becomes essential that you create your playbook, that you create good enablement, and can get your reps productive much faster.
Yep, that rep time is hugely important. Curious, so what is in the playbook? Like I would imagine it's more than just talk tracks. It's more than use cases. Like what are you distilling in that you want reps to be able to represent when they go to pitch G2?
Right, and it's really the whole funnel. Kind of from the top of funnel, which might be kind of an inbound inquiry. How do you qualify that lead? How do you actually turn it into an opportunity? Then how do you properly grade those opportunities, ultimately convert them to closed won? But then along the way, there's a lot of tooling. For example, there's templates. How do you respond to that initial inquiry? What questions do you ask the prospect on that first qualifying call, to see if this is actually really a valid opportunity? And then also, how do you, once you've qualified the opportunity, what's the right messaging, in that first sales meeting, which typically will include, we call it our first vision call, which includes a whole playbook. Here's the slides you present to paint the vision for the company. Here's that first demo that you do. And then here's how you follow up on that first call. And, but then there's a whole process. Then there's the second call. There's a core tool I mentioned around building value. We called it a BOA, a breakthrough opportunity analysis. And where we would, with our customers, together define how they could achieve breakthroughs in sales productivity using our software. And we then back that up also with whole spreadsheet model, to quantify the ROI together with the customer so they really believed it. And then it continued into implementation templates, SOWs, implementation best practices, because once the customer is convinced of the value, convinced your provider, they start to have fear. How do I actually implement this? And can you be a trusted partner? So then it has all the implementation best practices and, everything you need. So really from the top of the funnel all the way through closing, and even beyond closing, then we have a whole customer success playbook, which, is separate, but I think the prospect also wants to feel and know that, hey, the relationship doesn't stop in any way when the deal's more closed won, because we also learned that's actually really when it just starts. How do you take care of them? How do you make sure they're successful? And then ultimately, how can you grow and upsell them? So it's really a holistic approach to the whole, customer life cycle, all the way from that initial inquiry, all the way through closed won, all the way through successful customer outcome.
You brought up one of the heretical ideas, which I have, which is that there is no such thing as closed won. And it's funny that closed won exists in almost every single CRM I have ever seen. And I don't think that it actually exists. That it is, as you said, it's just when things are starting. And maybe it works for washing machines or refrigerators where nobody's going to touch it for another couple of years. But in SaaS, if you've got recurring revenue, like you have to be in there. You have to make sure they're successful.
True. And I think that pressure is higher than ever. I think most companies, including G2, were having more churn challenges because in reality, we mainly serve software marketers and it's a tougher market for them. They're not able to raise funding. So a lot of them are cutting back their marketing budgets. So I think you're right. If you don't from day one start delivering value, making that customer feel great about their purchase, obviously successfully implementing, but also communicating to them, hey, here's all the value you're getting. Here's why you should be excited. If you're not doing that, I think it becomes very challenging on churn. And I think also the expectation from investors now is that we all have, very positive NRR, net revenue retention, where on average, not only are we retaining, the SaaS dollars people are spending with us, but ideally every year we're growing that book overall. And so I do think, Russell, it is more important than ever. And you're right. Maybe we should call it like closed start or something, because it really is just the beginning of the customer relationship.
I love closed start. That's the first alternative that I've heard. So I talked to Alina at Chili Piper, and one of the tips that she mentioned was to use a Chili Piper link for somebody who's canceling, and to try to get in front of the person to find out like what's going on and if that is something that can be addressed quickly. And they said that was one of the experiments they had run recently that was successful. God, there's so many different directions we could go. In terms of AI, coming back to AI, I was wondering if you can share some concrete examples of how your sales and marketing team are using AI, if you have anything today.
Yeah, and we are putting it into our website chat also. So I think most people have this website, but we've also put Monty in our chat so that we can provide much better answers, to software marketers that want to learn more about how they might upgrade their G2 profile, how they might engage with our audience. And frankly, we trained that seller Monty based on just call recordings. And, we kind of just took 20 call recordings from our best sales reps. And then we trained our Monty, which is built on top of ChatGPT. And we were amazed, even after just being trained on 20 good sales calls, how well Monty can answer a lot of common prospect and customer questions. And I think that's great for the buyer, because they can get educated much more faster. They don't even have to wait for a sales call. And so I think we're really excited to enable more and more self-serve by taking a lot of that knowledge, where you traditionally had to talk to a salesperson or maybe go read a blog post. Right now it can just be an intelligent conversation with the chatbot Monty right on G2. And we think that's really going to accelerate our sales cycles and sales productivity.
And so do you think, I've got a view on it, but do you think that that's going to superpower your salespeople, or that's going to focus them on the very end of the funnel? And how do you think that's going to affect sales?
I do think that's going to, kind of superpower them, because I think the ultimate value of a salesperson is in building that human relationship, and also letting the customer feel your culture, feel that you're going to take care of them. And frankly, that's something, as far as I know, we can't put in the AI, the human connection, the human community. And I think also being that human advisor. And so I think it does, in my mind, it'll take away a lot of the mundane work. And I think also, I know what you guys are working on at Hubspot, right? Also the mundane work of like filling in all the forms to update my CRM pipeline. I also think AI can parse conversations. And I think that's what your founder, Dharmesh, is working on, right? And just do the pipeline updates for you. And so I think a lot of the tedious tasks that traditionally sales reps had to do manually, I think the AI can automate. And so I think it can give salespeople more superpower and make them more productive than ever. Of course, on the flip side, I would say if as a salesperson you don't adopt it, or frankly, any knowledge worker, if you don't adopt it, if you don't learn, then I do think, it could be a challenge, or frankly, even a problem, because I think we can all use the tools. And I use them myself. I always have ChatGPT 4 open. And if I'm sending somebody an email, why not use it to improve it? We can all use it to improve so many aspects of our work. And so I think it's one of those tools now in technology where, all of us, if we can seize the opportunity, learn, we can really automate a lot of our mundane work and really get better at using our superpowers. So I think it's an exciting opportunity and a big inflection point that I do think will power the best salespeople to more and more productivity.
Yeah, it's interesting. One of the best use cases that I have seen is combining conversational intelligence with AI and being able to write up call meeting notes and next steps, follow-up emails, things like that, which are the bane of every salesperson's existence. Like you want to talk to your customers, but actually writing those notes and getting that into the CRM is not the thing that you're most excited about in life. And so being able to streamline that and make people more effective. But I do also really see like a lot of activity, like, and this is one of the spaces that G2 is involved in, is around buyer intent, and like what things are customers asking, like what questions are they not asking, and how can you engage with them, and being able to surface that, I think, can really superpower reps.
For sure. And I think you're right. A lot of that mundane, as you said, write up my call notes, document the next steps. Like a lot of that can be automated away and just be much quicker. And
For
then
sure.
I do think the real superpower of sales is going to be more and more on the EQ, I would say. Yeah, because even the IQ of just answering basic questions, I think the AI can do a lot of that, right? But I think really building the trusted relationship, the trusted connection with the human beings at your customer, I think that's going to be, I think, where salespeople can really focus. And I think that's what the best salespeople enjoy.
Yep. And so I'm curious from a go-to-market perspective, historically, would you say that G2 has been very much a marketing-driven engine, a sales-driven engine? How would you PLG, like how would you classify your GTM?
Yeah, and it's probably, I would call it product assisted growth. People are talking about these hybrid models. And I think the one unique thing about G2 versus the more traditional SaaS business I built, G2 is very much a two-sided marketplace. And so honestly, engaging the customers is much easier. And G2, we're committed to a freemium model. So as a software vendor, you always start with a free profile on G2, and you don't have to pay us a penny to be number one in your category. And one example of that, like for years, Slack was always number one on G2. And frankly, we could never get them to sign up for our paid marketing solutions, but we were okay with that. But they had, 40, 50,000 really happy reviews. And so they actually loved G2. They just never, and frankly, they were growing so fast, they felt like they didn't need our marketing solutions to grow even faster. And, but I think that's the way G2 starts. So it's very much, I think easy to engage that prospect because they're already on G2. We can share some interesting information about how are they doing in their category. And, they're already on our platform. And then what our sales team does, it kind of assists them in learning about the value of our premium marketing solutions, such as buyer intent, or if they want to use our content, in their own sales campaigns, their own marketing campaigns. Because one downside of sending your prospect to G2 that some sellers see, now they're in a very competitive marketplace, right? Because a prospect also sees your top 50 competitors, which is fine. But most salespeople prefer, hey, I'd rather give them the great reviews, reference page, custom branded for myself, powered by G2. So that's just kind of one example. But then that's what our sales team focuses on is, basically educating that prospect that's already on G2.com on the value of our premium solutions, and then also assist them, in implementing that and having success with it. And so I think it's always been a hybrid motion where we haven't, and I think over time with AI, we can probably get more people to fully self-serve, but it's been more of, hey, sign up for G2, start using it for free. And then our sales team can start to engage them and hopefully convince them of the value of moving to a premium marketing solution.
So one of the things, so I'm based in Europe, and I often encourage the app partners that I work with to invest more heavily in their G2 profile if they are selling into the US, because I think that it's absolutely key step if you want to succeed in the US to have a strong G2 presence. And you're right, in a way, it does show you alongside your competitors, but better to look good in that comparison rather than to look mediocre.
Or even, I honestly think worst case, you're just missing, because it has become a stamp of credibility in our industry, right? It's like, what do you mean? You don't even have a single review. I do think that, so I think at least you want to be there.
Definitely.
And like I said, you can be there for free. That part doesn't cost you anything, because it is designed for startup entrepreneurs. Because frankly, we didn't like the traditional analyst model, Gartner, Forrester, where I remember my first company, BigMachines, at the end, we were spending $100,000 a year with them. We could afford to do that, but it took us like 9 years, I think, to get in a Gartner report, 12 years to become a leader. And how many entrepreneurs want to wait 9 years?
Yeah. I won't go down that path. One of the things I'm interested in is that you offer dozens of integrations with a variety of different use cases. And Matthew Gombeau, who's the global VP of partnerships at Aircall, one of the things that he has talked to me about is how he sees the evolution of partnerships from a hub and spoke model connected to a specific ecosystem to more of a mesh network and integrations between partners flowing with potentially sales and marketing, but also even product integrations. You have integrations with SalesLoft and Hubspot, just kind of more traditional marketing sales automation tools and CRM. And then you also integrate with 6sense and Bombora, who have their own intent engines. I'm curious, like how do you think about partnerships? Like you've been doing it for longer than most people, going back to BigMachines and SteelBrick days.
Yeah, no, and I do think frankly, we learned the hard way. Our first startups, especially BigMachines, like we struggled for years. I mentioned we were almost bankrupt. And honestly, one of the things that lifted us out of that was starting to partner. And in the relatively early SaaS days, I think this was even before HubSpot existed, but we partnered with Salesforce early. We partnered with Microsoft Dynamics CRM and with Oracle SQL CRM. And all of a sudden, that's actually what started, I think way back in 2007, what started lifting our sales growth. Because all of a sudden, once our customers could see how our CPQ could work seamlessly with their CRM, it made it a much easier investment decision. And frankly, then we also had the trust stamp, from big companies like Microsoft, Salesforce, Oracle, that frankly, as a little startup, it was hard for people to trust us without that partner stamp. So I kind of learned myself how powerful being part of an ecosystem can be to drive growth. And then at G2, we very much believe in ecosystem-led growth. And frankly, at G2, we also want to stay focused on being a great review platform, providing great software advice. We don't want to but to get value from our data, from our intent data, from our content, people need to operationalize it in a sales or in a marketing system. And so we, from day one, just said, hey, let's build great integrations and let's be part of other people's ecosystems. And that's why we're also excited to be part of the HubSpot ecosystem. We'll certainly be at Inbound, and because we do have great integrations to HubSpot, for example, where our buyer intent signals in HubSpot CRM. If you're a salesperson, you get alerts. Wow, your customer. Obviously, on HubSpot, you provide this out of the box when they're on your own website. But equally important, hey, they're shopping on G2 right now. They're looking at your company's profile on G2.com. They might be looking at competitors. And now you can get those alerts real time in HubSpot. And potentially that can even trigger actions. And this could be an ABM system like 6sense, where they also provide scoring, let's say, where you can provide lead scoring, account scoring, and you can see which accounts are really heating up based on the digital activity, not only on your own properties, but also on G2.com. And so we do see that's how people really get value, or if they want to use our content, put it into an email marketing campaign, it can seamlessly flow into HubSpot or, whatever email marketing solution you might be using. And so we do think it's a bit like peanut butter and jelly, to maybe use the American, analogy, but it goes really well together. Or maybe in Germany, it's like Wurst und Senf, your sausage with your mustard. But it does go very symbiotically. And I do think almost every startup now, I think by being part of bigger ecosystems, you can accelerate trust and growth and frankly, utility, because it is very much an API driven economy now. And most startups, you're not going to be a platform or a suite day one. So you really want to be symbiotic to larger players, use their APIs and add value to your customers by plugging into the platforms your customers are already using.
And so how do you motivate or incentivize your salespeople to lean into those partnerships?
And I think usually in most people, let's say, I remember at BigMachines, SteelBrick, we had sales reps aligned by region. And I remember we said, hey, 20% of your job is to get to know the partners in your territory. And because I think the customer will respond so much better, even if your partner, if all they do is just send an email, like, hey, we trust this partner, and meet Jim from my partner. I think if you get that introduction from a platform partner where the customer is already using their platform, then I think we saw like your sales cycles just accelerate dramatically, your conversions accelerate dramatically. So I think as a salesperson, thinking of yourself truly as a relationship builder and truly surrounding your prospect or your customer, obviously reaching out to them, but even better, if you can have a trusted partner from a platform that, or it could be an agency, a consultant that's already working with your customer, if they'll give you a trusted introduction, I think your odds of engagement are probably 10x higher and your sales cycle will be that much faster. So I do think in this modern world of ecosystems, it's essential that salespeople think about surrounding the customer with relationships, with partners as well.
And so how do you handle that in terms of commission perspective? If there's a partner attached to a deal, does the salesperson get less commission, or it's exactly the same regardless of whether it was partner sourced or partner influenced?
Yeah, we always make it exactly the same, because I think if you punish your salespeople in a way, by reducing their commission if a partner's involved, honestly, then they're not going to want to introduce the partners, which I think is detrimental. So I think we always said, hey, leverage them. And, if anything, sometimes when we introduce a new partner, we'll do a spiff. where they get, extra bonus, extra incentive if they do leverage the partner. Because partnering is also hard, and the reality is, and you mentioned Chili Piper, we also have a G2 partnership with them, but at the beginning, your sales reps are always skeptical. And it's understandable in sales. You're always under a lot of pressure. You have to sell your own product. You have your own quota, your own goals. And you're like, oh, why should I introduce a partner? That's just going to slow me down, right? But then, so I think providing an incentive sometimes, and then they see, oh, wow, and Chili Piper is an example. Hey, if, people also use Chili Piper to set appointments straight from their G2 intent data, and they do it in real time, and they get more meetings. Guess what? The customer's going to be happier, right? They're going to buy more from us, and they'll be happy Chili Piper customer. But I think it does take some incentive. You have to prime the pump with partnerships, because I think most sales reps are naturally skeptical, right? They want to focus on selling their own wares, and they don't want to complicate their deals with partners. But I do think in this modern ecosystem world, it's also important that you teach your salespeople and incent your salespeople to trust and leverage the partners, ultimately to make the end customer happier.
Yep, solving for the customer. We have one of the benefits of working at HubSpot. We've got some cool ones like Week of Rest, but honestly one of the best is some of the colleagues that we have. And in our partnership team, we have somebody from the customer success team, Katie Moynihan, who's stellar. And what she always says is solve for the customer, and almost even more so than solve for the partner. Because if the partner is not solving for the customer, you're not going to win in the end.
Yeah, no, it's got to be aligned with the customer. And I think oftentimes also HubSpot, I think that's why you guys have such a big thriving ecosystem, right? Because so many of your customers, for example, use agencies to help them get the most out of HubSpot. But then they also plug in a lot of partners, like a Chili.
40% attached, 40% attached to agencies.
Yeah, 40% agencies are helping them have success. And then I'm sure many of them are using apps from your marketplace, help them get even more value from their HubSpot platform. And but ultimately, partnerships are only good if the end customer is happier, has more value from using both solutions. And I think the good news with modern APIs, it's easier than ever. But you still have to build those trust relationships where the end customer ultimately sees more value, but they also trust that, hey, if HubSpot, if you're introducing a partner, that a partner is going to add value and do a good job. And of course, one of the best ways to validate that is with G2 reviews.
Yep. I absolutely believe it. And in a way, coming back to the how will AI change things, that I see a way for, or I see the huge opportunity to manage the complexity of the buying process, to understand the organization and structure of customers and cross-selling and upselling. But also, as you said, building those trusted relationships with partners, because you just need one positive or negative word to come in from the partner side, and your deal that you think is going to sign this month just gets blown up or it gets signed. And
true,
it's hard to you don't have much visibility on it. But if you're at sales, that is a huge part of your job.
Yeah, because odds are they're going to blind reference you with your partner. For example, I'm sure if it's a HubSpot integration app or integrated app, right? They're going to ask their HubSpot rep, hey, what do you think about this partner? And obviously, ideally, they say, great, 5 of my joint accounts are already using them, having great success. I think middle is sort of, I don't know them. That's already bad. Worst case is, oh, don't do it. One of my customers failed with it. And I think you're right, that ecosystem reputation can be quite fragile. And so I think, if it's with a partner, you want to double make sure the end customer has success and then market that success. Because then it just builds upon itself. So I think it's super crucial that that the customer succeeds, and then you build those relationships with the partners, let the partners know, hey, our joint customers are happier, and ideally you have some stats where look, they're going to get so much more ROI with your app, my app, and by the way, they're going to renew more. And I think, and I remember also after SteelBrick was acquired by SalesForce, they also had a bunch of data that for example, customers with one app exchange app installed renewed much higher, and then customers, once they have 5 or 10 partner apps installed, of course the renewal rate goes to almost 100%. And I think that's true for any ecosystem, because once the end customer is not only using HubSpot but a bunch of your partner apps, they're going to be very committed, locked in, because they're getting tons of value across tons of apps, and frankly switching becomes almost impossible.
Absolutely. I definitely think as we look at retention and how you manage that, we don't see it going up to 100%, but definitely
that never happens, sadly.
But it is a very large double-digit increase, and we've seen that on case studies for our partners.
So really excited about that. One last question. I realize we're just over time. Any advice for sales reps or BDRs that are early in their career, as somebody who has started in the trenches as the first seller and then built up a business?
Yeah. I mean, I would say right now, especially it is a time to grind hard. It's a tougher economy. And frankly, the reality is also true for a lot of our young sales reps at G2. Sometimes they're like, hey, you mean I have to make more calls and I might make less money than 2 years ago? That's true. I think it's true in a tough economy. But I do think, showing grit, perseverance, resilience now, what I've always seen then, those people that make it through these down cycles in our industry, they come out so much stronger. And so I'd say, yes, more activity right now, grind more, talk to more customers. And then the other key is just get better every meeting. And that's always what I've seen our best sales reps do, right? Every meeting, they get a new objection or they introduce a new partner, but they're learning something every meeting. And their talk track, their messaging gets better every meeting. And then if you compound that, it's that whole mantra, get 1% better every day. Or even if you get 10% better every year, you compound that for a decade. And all of a sudden you'll be the best salesperson or best sales leader, or maybe you'll even be an entrepreneur. And so I think, grind hard now, get better every meeting, really listen to your customers. If you do that in a downturn, then it'll be incredible what you can do, when growth returns to our industry.
Godard, it's been a pleasure. Looking forward to seeing you at SaaStock. If folks want to get in touch with you on LinkedIn, is that the best option?
Yeah, LinkedIn is great, or my email is godard@g2. And I always love hearing salespeople, entrepreneurs around the world. So look forward to hearing from some of you. And yes, Russell, look forward to seeing you in Dublin.
An honor to have you here on the Make It Happen podcast. And look forward to seeing you soon.
Yeah, take care. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. With your support and our incredible guests, we're one of the top sales podcasts out there right now, and I can't thank you enough. Now, to keep the momentum going, it would mean the world to me if you could go and leave a 5-star review on your favorite podcast platform and share some of your favorite episodes with your network. Also, check out my new website at www.johnm.barrows.com, where you'll find even more ways to engage. There's a ton of free content, and you can also get trained from me directly as an individual or for your team. Look, I'm out there selling every day just like you are, and I'm doing my best to stay on top of all the latest trends in technology. So if you're looking to level up and you give a shit about this profession of sales, let's connect and let's make this happen together.